welcome to the Onside Kick. Ricky Widmer here along with Mark Weber.
How's it going, guys?
And last week, Mark, you were all on your own for the podcast, did a little previewing the Bears preseason game 1, and you looked at the AFC North. We're going to continue, though, this week. Look at the Bears, second game of the preseason. We're going to look at the NFC North, the Bears division, my Vikings division, as we get closer and closer to football season. I want to get right to it. Bears-Chargers. Bears get the huge win over the Chargers by a score of 33-28, and there were some good and some bad. The good, the defense. How many takeaways did they have in that game? I don't care. That means you're getting a free burger at Red Robin. And most importantly, I am pleasantly surprised with the performance we've seen out of John Bostic this offseason. I wasn't expecting it.
He's very impressive. He's making the case for why he needs to start, for why you need to go out there and get his jersey now. You know, he's basically being this key defensive player. He's going all over the field. He can stop anything and everything. He's fast. He can do everything that Brian Urlacher was able to do. The only thing he's not doing is calling the plays and making all the adjustments. That's all on Lance Briggs, but he's doing everything you need and want out of the young middle linebacker.
Well, and I'm looking back on our Facebook page because during the first half, I was doing a little posting and tweeting on our Facebook and Twitter pages at Onside Kick Real. And one of the things I said, they were talking about Bostic having big shoes to fill, because Brian Urlacher's not there anymore. And I put John Bostic has some big shoes to fill, but I think he's up for the challenge. 2 straight games, he's had a takeaway, and he's had a huge hit, especially in this last game against the Chargers, one that you like.
I love that hit, and I love that he hits the guy, it pops out, should have been a forced fumble. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And then what he does, he gives that little chirp at him. You stay on the ground, you're not getting anywhere on me. And I love it. I love the attitude. It's not too much. It's not like it's out of control. It's just him asserting his dominance and saying, this is my field. This is my team.
Well, I mean, that was the big question I was going to say for the Bears is you lose Brian Urlacher. Yes, I know the offense is its own story, and more importantly, the offensive line. We'll get to that. But, I mean, you lose the face, the commander, the head honcho of your defense, and you're expecting not to lose, like you're expecting just not to stutter step or not to slow down. I was like, okay, we're not going to have Brian Urlacher. What is the Bears' defense going to look like? Who's going to step up? And like I said earlier in the show, I wasn't expecting Bostic, a rookie out of Florida, where it was like I didn't really know much about him before the Bears drafted him. Now I'm starting to familiarize myself with him, and like you said, Mark, go out there, get his jersey, because he's going to be starting on Sundays.
That's right. Doing everything you want to see out there. The defense, without a doubt, they didn't take a step back. They're just moving straight forward, straight on, whether Brian Urlacher had ever been on this team or not. They don't care right now. Everything's going well. It's just, unfortunately for the Bears, because that defense right now, and this is just preseason, got to put that out there, but right now, they're looking like a team that can compete. That offense, however...
Yeah, I mean, you say, though, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but you say, yeah, it's only preseason, but for the majority of that first half, we had starters versus starters with the Bears and the Chargers, and I mean, the Bears defense basically shut down Phillip Rivers as he only went 5 of 9, 50 yards, threw a big interception that was, if I'm not mistaken, it was deflected and then picked off by Conti.
I just think that, well, obviously the turnovers, huge. And I think that's the one thing I love to see right now is that we are still getting the turnovers. The takeaways are all there. We haven't dropped that part of our philosophy. The defense, they're fine. It's going to be Chicago Bears football. The defense is going to carry this team far. That's just what we do.
Monsters of the Midway, baby.
Exactly. And that's the advantage right now because it is going to take a while for this offense to learn the system. But we don't have to learn that much. We don't have to do that much. Jay Cutler, yes, he's in a contract year. He's got to impress. But he doesn't have to do that much. He really doesn't, because the defense is going to set us up in good position, and that's what Chicago football is.
The only thing, and I wouldn't say the only thing, I'm concerned for Jay Cutler because if you're an avid listener of the show, the one thing I've been saying all offseason, I've basically been saying it since the Super Bowl. What has Jay Cutler had to do this offseason? He had to say one thing, and he hasn't said it. He has to come out and say, I'm an elite quarterback, because then the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl.
That's your superstition talking.
Well, I mean, Eli does it. 2 Super Bowls. Flacco does it. Super Bowl. Why not Cutler? And Flacco, contract year.
Yeah, there are similarities there. I don't want to see Jay say anything like that because I don't think it's part of his personality. It's not who Jay is, but I just think that...
Yeah, but the Bears need that. The last quarterback that I can remember that had that personality for the Bears, oh yeah, that's right. You guys won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but, I mean, Jay has a similar personality, that similar, I guess, kind of F you, I don't really care type of thing. And people criticize Jay Cutler on it, but it's a thing that we had loved before in '85. But, I mean, I think it's interesting because the coaching staff was raving about Jay Cutler in practice. They loved everything they saw. And I think Trestman right now isn't as happy. He doesn't like some of the mistakes we're seeing. Of course, now is the time where we're actually using the playbook and we're actually seeing the slow, sluggish process of figuring everything out. And it seems right now that, to be honest, I don't think they're as happy with our offense or with Jay Cutler right now.
One thing that I think Jay Cutler is going to have to fix, or he's going to have to work on, is we all know that him and Brandon Marshall have a relationship. They're familiar with each other. He's comfortable with Brandon Marshall. But on Thursday Night Football last year, what did the Packers prove? The Bears went to Green Bay, and the Packers said, hey, Jay, try to throw to someone besides Brandon. And he couldn't do it. I mean, yes, the offensive line was terrible. I will give you that. But the Packers took away his safety blanket. They took away his number one option, and he couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
and I will let you speak. I just want to say, on the one touchdown that he had, he eyed down Brandon Marshall quite a bit, where it's like, how did you not know he was going to throw it to him?
I mean, you do have the small sample size, and he's a big target, so he's the kind of go-to guy. I think it's going to be interesting. An idea here, and they're not going to do this, but Game 3, Jay Cutler's going to play 2.5, 3 quarters. Take Brandon Marshall out. Take him out early.
They're not gonna.
It's an idea because right now you have this new playbook. You got this new system. I don't want to say you have that many new guys, but you have new guys that Jay has to throw to. And people who last season, like Alshon Jeffrey, he likes him. He doesn't trust him because he wasn't there. He was hurt. So he never got to develop that relationship. And Martellus Bennett, fantastic tight end. But there's no relationship yet. You know, those are the things that you need to kind of build that up. These guys need to get that relationship with Jay Cutler. That's the thing that's going to take a season, maybe a season and a half for them all to learn the system together and to be comfortable.
Yeah, but I'm going to put it this way. Do the Bears have a season? Do they have the time to say, hey, you know what? It might take a full season for Cutler and this offense to learn the system. Do they necessarily have the time to do that?
I think the window is 2 or 3 years, and that's including this season. So I don't really know. They could potentially, this will be a growing year, and we'll see what happens. And then they get into next year. By next year, things should be pretty good, pretty close to figuring out this offensive system. But then you have the question of, is Jay Cutler going to be here or not?
And another thing I'm looking at, the only time Jay was intercepted this past week was about 5.5 left in the first quarter. Who was his target?
It's Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall. And you got a guy like Butler for the Chargers where the first time he was like, okay, we should have intercepted that ball. That's not going to happen again. Look what happened. The Chargers adapted. They intercepted the ball. And that's the main thing that I'm going at here is The two things that I want to see from the Bears this season if they want to be successful. One, Jay has to get out of his comfort zone. Brandon Marshall is his comfort zone, and he needs to look at Jeffries, look at Bennett, look at the other options he has because, I mean, we look at the other quarterbacks. Drew Brees, when he was successful, how many wide receivers did he throw to?
He had more wide receivers, though, than we have.
Aaron Rodgers, how many wide receivers did he throw to?
He's had more. I mean, the thing that comes down to with Jay is he doesn't trust anybody else, and when he has, it hasn't gone well. Like, whenever he's gone to other guys in the past, they haven't been reliable.
Let me put it this way. How well did the Arizona Cardinals do when their main target, their go-to guy, is Larry Fitzgerald? I know Fitzgerald, great wide receiver, but I mean, like you say, you don't put the guys around your quarterback, that's what you're going to get. And I mean, Trestman's a guy where he's known for scouting. So this year is a sample year. I'm looking for next year, the year after, the kind of guys that Trestman scouts and brings into this system. And I'll say, the game against the Chargers, I liked the way Long looked. The first-round pick, the guy where it's like, why did we take Kyle Long?
Minus the first drive. The first drive was horrible.
The first drive was horrible because once Jay got sacked, I was like, my mind flashed back to that New York Giants game where they set the record.
And it's and to be fair, this was a new lineup. We're changing the lineup all the time of those five guys and kind of reshifting, so it takes a little bit. And it's going to take until week 1. I won't be surprised if the very first, play on the offense for the Bears in the regular season is a sack. Because we're going to have that reestablishing the line every single time until probably the regular season, week 1, when we finally have it finalized, assuming no one else gets hurt.
Yeah, but I mean, all I'm going to say about that week 1 game is at least you're not playing who the Vikings have to play. At least you're not playing that defensive line of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that's nice. We can have a little bit of an easing into the schedule, which is good. But something I do like with Trestman, too, is he's showing some balance this time. We went pretty much all pass earlier in game 1. This one we had a lot more running. And honestly, it probably was just the way that they wanted to do. They wanted to focus on one thing. Now we're going to focus on a little bit more. We're going to see different things and just see how they work out.
And look at what happened when you focused on the run game. During I want to say it was the second drive for the Bears, right before that touchdown that Jay Cutler threw to Brandon Marshall, Matt Forte, 3rd and 1, rattles off a 58-yard run. Should have been a touchdown. I thought he was going all the way. And that's the kind of things that happen when you're a team that's committed to the run game. And I know we talk about how, the NFL it's a passer's market, it's a quarterback league, but I mean, there's a part of me that's like, the Bears are in the NFC North. You have Adrian Peterson, who had one of the best seasons of a running back ever last season, coming off an ACL injury. I think the Bears need to go to that. They need to give Forte the ball more.
I think, and a thing is here with the Bears is they're going to probably call multiple plays for the same play and let Jay decide once he gets out there what's going to happen because he'll be able to see what the defense is giving him. We're either going to pass it because you guys are all coming up, or we're going to run it because you're going back. I mean, it's going to be a lot of decision-making on the part of Jay Cutler, and I think he's done a good job of it so far. When it gets to the regular season, that's going to be the real test of how he can do it. But I think Trestman wants to be balanced. He's well aware of the fact that in the past, he has called a lot of passing plays, way too many passing plays. Now he wants to balance things out, and he's well aware of the players he has on this team.
Let me ask you this, and this might be a little bit early to ask this question, and we might get into more of it next week because next week's going to be our full-on Bears preview getting ready for the season. But if Cutler struggles this season, is there going to be any point where Trestman says to himself, I got to find my guy next year in the draft?
I'm still of the mindset that I won't be surprised. I don't think it should happen. I don't think it will happen, but I won't be surprised if Trestman wants his guy.
Do you think Cutler will become Trestman's guy?
He's got the potential. to become Trestman's guy. I think this obviously is the season for him to prove himself in that situation. It's tough to say because Jay Cutler fits a lot of what Trestman wants to do. And we have seen little samples and little tidbits. Jay Cutler can be, should be, and I hope that he will be, but it could go poorly. It really could. Some guys just don't work in certain systems. Maybe Jay just won't be able to catch it on, and he doesn't have that much leeway in time.
Well, one of the last things, unless there's something that you want to bring up, Mark, about the Bears, one of the last things that I kind of want to mention is in this game against the Chargers, Devin Hester only had one return. It went 45 yards. Great, Devin Hester. That's what he's going to give you on a quote-unquote bad kick return. But then you have a rookie, Michael Ford, 3 returns, 160 yards, and a 100-yard return that didn't go for a touchdown. If this kid performs well next week, could that mean the end of Hester?
It really should. I mean, go back to the youth. Why are kick returners so great when they're young and not so much when they get older?
Unless you're Deion Sanders. Primetime, baby.
It's been a long time since Deion Sanders.
Primetime.
But we have the ability to go back to, I mean, we don't know. We still got to see a little bit. And obviously, Devin Hester is the best kick returner in the game. Best kick returner in history. So, you're not going to get Michael Ford to come and just replace that. It's not going to happen. But Devin Hester's old. The only thing that keeps Devin Hester on this team is the fact that people kick it out of bounds when he's there. They're not going to kick it out of bounds if Michael Ford's there. Not until he proves himself. That does one of two things for you. It makes it to where your returner has to get it done. He has more pressure on him than Devin Hester does because they never kick it to Devin Hester anyways. In this situation, though, it gives you the opportunity to break those runs off. Devin Hester's probably never going to get another punt return for a touchdown or kick return for a touchdown. It's probably never going to happen again.
You really think that he's never going to get another touchdown?
He's never going to have the opportunity. When has he had the opportunity in like the past 3 years?
True.
So now you have a kid who can have that opportunity because people don't know. People aren't sure if they're going to kick it out to him. You know, they still think they can stop this guy. And if he can prove in game 3 to do just as well as he has been doing, I love that opportunity.
Well, and I mean, I kind of did a little bit of research right now, kind of to say what you were saying. Why are players better kick returners when they're younger? Last season, if we look at and I'm just going off of the top 5, these are the guys that put the most kick return yards total, not average, just total. Your first place guy, David Wilson, 22 years old. Then you have Darius Rayner, former Viking, 28 years old. Josh Cribbs, 30 years old. Jacoby Jones, 29 years old. And Joe McKnight, 25 years old.
It does cover some ground. Actually, it covers a little bit more ground than I would expect to see.
And you look at Devin Hester right now, 30.
Yep. He's at the top, and he's making a lot of money. And Michael Ford is making next to nothing.
And I mean, the one thing that, I mean, is also that you also have to look into this is, let's look at those guys. Out of those 5, Raynard, he's a running back, but I know from his time in Minnesota, he's a return guy. That is what he is used for, and he's even used that in Tennessee. But I'm looking at, like, Jacoby Jones. Yeah, he did great kickoff things, touchdown opening the second half of the Super Bowl, but Jacoby Jones is actually used on the Baltimore Ravens as a wide receiver. Devin Hester used to be a cornerback, couldn't play that. They moved him to wide receiver, can't catch the ball. If he can't kick return, he's useless.
Well, that's the situation you have because Ford, I don't know what you're going to do with him. You're going to stash him back on the running backs? I mean, you only get to keep one of these guys because only one of them is going to be your kick specialist. And you're keeping one.
I say go with Ford because you want to know why? Money.
Yep, save the money. I mean, in Chicago, Devin Hester has a very special place in my heart. As a fan of the Bears, I will never forget the things that he has done. But like Brian Urlacher, it's done. I mean, I don't think he's going to provide that much. I do say, though, having him on the field gets you better position no matter what. He will give us better position.
Well, even if if they punt it like the Giants did to Philadelphia when Coughlin wanted him to kick it out of bounds, if that happens, he's going to get you good yards.
Yeah, definitely.
Or they're going to kick it out of bounds.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You're going to get it, but it's very stagnant. We're at a place where we're happy. I wouldn't say that we're happy. We're content. We're content with what he can get us, field position wise. We could be happier with somebody else if he was given the opportunity, only because teams will give him the opportunity to succeed. But I don't know. Do you stick with what you're content with, or do you risk it and try and get something that can do better and make you happier?
Well, and I'm going to take this. Let's move we'll get back to the Bears a little bit, but in the NFC North, we're basically going to be talking about the other three teams because next week is going to be all Bears. Just preview the whole team front to back, give you what we think. And Mark, I'm going to leave it to you. Which NFC North team do you want to start with?
Let's start from the bottom. Let's go with the Detroit Lions.
Okay, the Lions, their last preseason game was against the Cleveland Browns. They lost 24-6.
Which is amazing. The Cleveland Browns are not doing horrible right now.
Brandon Weeden, hey, he did pretty good. 117 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. And I feel like with the Lions this season, it's all going to, that Stafford's going to toss it up to Megatron this season. But, I mean, the defensive line, probably one of the scariest defensive lines in the NFL. But what are they going to do with the running back position? Ever since they got rid of Javid Best, and from what I hear when I was watching the broadcast of the preseason game against the Jets, because they just keep playing them on NFL Network, apparently Michael LaShore might not be the starting running back for the Lions this season.
I never really expected him to be, especially when you get Bush out there. I mean, yeah, he's probably past his prime. He did fantastic things down in Florida. That's done and over with now. You're over in Detroit. I expected him moving over there to take the starting spot from Mikel LaShore. I don't know. We didn't see anything out of him last season. He wasn't really able to give anything. I don't know. You have a guy who's established. He's one of the top, at least was one of the top. And then you have this young guy who has health problems. He's very injury prone. Yeah, he's a bit of a workhorse, but you don't get that out of him. I say you go with the sure thing. You go with the safe bet on this one.
See, and I mean,
it's not like you can't use LaShore.
Do I like LaShore because he's a former Illinois guy and I'm an Illinois guy? Yes, but I mean, Reggie Bush I might agree with you. He might be the right choice for the Lions, but I mean, I'm looking at this offense and I mean, look at their wide receivers. I mean, Calvin Johnson. Yeah, I know they've got Burleson on the other line. They've got Broyles, who, for all you fantasy football players out there, the talented Mr. Roto, Matthew Berry, said that Ryan Broyles is probably a player that late in your draft you should look at, and he's going to make you look like a genius on draft day.
To be fair, though, Mr. Roto he's always very high on the Detroit Lions. And just a few seasons ago, he was proven right. Last season, Matthew Berry was proven very wrong. So I don't know. I think, it makes perfect sense. It's not anything genius. It's nothing smart. You just have Megatron. Then you got Burleson on the other side. Who's number 3? That's the answer to this question. And
well, I mean, without Titus Young on that team anymore.
Yeah, exactly. He's gone, so you got a new guy. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. There's always the question, is Matthew Stafford healthy now? Is he past the injury bugs of previous seasons? So far, I would say, yeah, he is. He's been doing fine now. Megatron's going to attract all the attention. Burleson is competent. I don't think he's anything special. You got Pettigrew over there. Pettigrew always does a solid job. But the thing about the Detroit Lions is, are they going to be the second best passing offense this year, or are they going to try and bring that running game back?
I think the thing that's going to carry the Lions this season is on the other side of the ball, their defense, because, I mean, the one part of their game that's going to carry them is their defensive line. I mentioned it earlier. On paper, and I say that, I'm going to say it again, on paper, because anything can happen in the game, they have the best defensive line in the NFL. You have Fairley, Sue, Anza, who they just drafted. They got Adonijah, former Bear, who, I mean, yeah, he's sitting behind Ansa right now on the depth chart, but I expect Adonijah to get some good playing time this year.
Especially when we're going against the Lions here. Lions versus Bears, Izzy's going to be on that line. You know he's going to be on that line, and he's going to be wanting to get to Jay Cutler. This defense is interesting. They have the attitude. We all know about Detroit's attitude. It's kind of detrimental at times, but they're going to get to the quarterback. It's just going to happen. The thing is, for Detroit, can that defensive line get to the quarterback and cause bad throws or sacks before they get the chance to throw on the weak defensive backs?
And see, I think that's going to be key because, I mean, the secondary, out of their entire secondary, the two players that I like, Delmas and Houston, those are the players that speak to me. Out of their linebackers, no one really speaks to me. And maybe it's because I'm not a Detroit Lions guy. Maybe it's because I'm not high on the Lions this year. But, I mean, Houston and Delmas, besides the defensive line, only two defensive players that speak to me.
And I think that's a problem with the Detroit Lions. And I'm not a fan of the Detroit Lions, obviously. So I do admit that I probably have a little bit of bias against them. But they go and try and get the defensive line stacked every year in the draft. It's just what they do. And they have other issues that they should probably address. Because you can't just rely on the defensive line all the time.
I will say this, though. Because of that defensive line, do not be afraid, or do not be surprised, I should say, if the Lions step in to Green Bay on October 6th with a record of 3-1. Because I'm looking at their schedule. If the defensive line does what you said and gets to the quarterback and causes bad throws, they can beat my Vikings. They can definitely beat the Cardinals. Washington, I'm going to put Washington as a winner because I expect Kirk Cousins to be playing that game. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to do a great job until RG3's back. And I could see the Lions beating the Bears if they can get to Jay Cutler.
Yeah, the key for the Lions against the Bears is getting Jay Cutler, getting him pressured, getting him flustered. The only thing, I don't believe that Megatron can get it done against Peanut Tillman.
See, and that's another side. I was saying, and don't be surprised if 3-1. I'm not saying they're going to be 3-1. I'm just saying don't be surprised
possible
if they are. But I mean, look at the other side. I just matched up offenses to defenses with the Detroit defense. Look at the other way around. I would basically take that and flip it, because if we're looking at the Lions offense compared to these defenses, Minnesota wins, Washington wins, Chicago wins, Arizona loses.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough for Minnesota because that is the very first week and they got some young guys, some new guys in the offense. So maybe there's going to be a little bit of growing pains.
Well, and plus when you've got Jared Allen rushing at Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. There's some interesting situations, but you know, the thing is about Arizona, they got a good defense. They do. It's not perfect, but it's a good defense. And we all remember Arizona started out 4-0 last season. They easily can match up against the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions with their defense. The offenses don't compare at all. But that defense can do a good job. I just think that maybe this year is going to be different, but it's kind of a similar problem that we have in Chicago. They got Megatron. We got Marshall. It's just trying to get some other guys.
See, and I mean, I'm going to go back to that Vikings-Lions matchup because I'm the Vikings guy. Looking at the Lions offense to the Vikings defense, yeah, I bring up Jared Allen. But out of the 3 first-round picks we drafted this year, 2 of them were on what side of the ball? Oh, yeah, that's right, defense. You got Xavier Rhodes, cornerback, and Sharif Floyd on that defensive line. Am I saying that those 2 are going to start? No, but I expect those 2 to be kind of in this system, creating problems, especially for the Lions.
The Lions, it's very interesting because, as always, on paper, they look good. And honestly, on paper, this division's up for grabs. Any team can take it on paper. We're going to have to wait to see what happens. Detroit, just like we said 2 seasons ago, they were surprising everybody. Last year, same old Lions. Who's going to show up this year? You really can't say until we see it on the field. Jimmy Schwartz, you going to keep that job or are you going to lose it? This is your year.
I will say this about the Lions. I've said this about them for, I want to say the past 2 years, is they will never make the playoffs until they get rid of Schwartz. Schwartz is not the man to lead the Lions to playoffs, to Super Bowl, to anything. He is not the man for the job.
I agree with you. I mean, he obviously 2 seasons ago they got to the playoffs. You gotta give him credit for that. But I just don't think that you just don't see good discipline on this team, and I know that's gonna infuriate some Detroit Lions fans out there. But this team just doesn't look disciplined, and you see it with Sue all the time. Every time you're out there, and part of it's just now.
Or you call him a dirty player, yeah. Chicago fans?
He is a dirty player. He is a dirty player. We all know it. But, I mean, and part of it now is just the perception. We all think he's a dirty player, so everything we see, he's a dirty player. Even if it is a little, it's kind of okay. But still, at this point, dirty player, and that infects the whole team. The whole team is seen as being dirty.
I might be catching off guard, but last thing about the Lions, how many wins do they get this season?
I think... like I said, it's tough because maybe they can show up. I expect it to be more around 6.
You're going to say 6 wins? 6?
I'm going to say 6 because, I mean, here's the thing. I think they can catch Minnesota off guard. I think they can beat Arizona, although it might be tough. They can beat the Factory of Sadness in Cleveland. Cincinnati, maybe. Dallas is a maybe. Then Tampa Bay, are they going to be good this year or not? Chip Kelly, we're still unsure about. And maybe split one with Chicago or Green Bay.
I'm going to shock the world here. You ready? Week 2. That's your only win.
Wow.
Week 2. You will beat the Cardinals, and then you will never win another game.
You know, here's the thing, Detroit. We've seen you lose every
16
game.
of them.
I wouldn't be surprised to see you only win one. I don't think it's going to happen. I see them being below average, obviously. They're going to be below 500, I think, although they could do better if they magically surprise us all again. But I think that was kind of fluky.
And I mean, later in the show, I will give my more in-depth reason for picking only one win, but we'll get to that a little later. Let's move on. I'm going to actually say let's move on to the Vikings, my Minnesota Vikings. And in their last preseason game, they lose 20-16 against the Buffalo Bills. They've now lost both of their preseason games. And
who I will say, E.J. Manuel doing a fantastic job. Surprised me.
He has. I don't know who's going to win. We're going to get to that quarterback competition later. The one thing about the Vikings, though, I'm going to throw it out right here, right now. You can call me stupid. You can call me anything you want.
I will. So
I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Castle becomes the starter of this team some point in the season.
I don't see it. Matt Castle has had his opportunity to prove everybody that he can get it done. He can be a starting quarterback, and he can't do it.
I'm not saying he's going to be the starter, but I'm looking at these games. Okay, Christian Ponder. This is the season for Ponder where it's like, are you that quarterback that we thought you are? We drafted you because we thought you were the guy for the job. Why did we draft him? I have no idea.
Yeah, you guys reached for him is what happened.
He's I don't think he's going to have a great season, and I think he's going to be struggling. And because of how decent Matt Castle has been in these preseason games, he's going to get a shot. And I mean, the one thing I will say, look at the wide receiver core in Minnesota. Look at who we just added. I mean, yeah, we don't have Sidney Rice and Percy Harvin. The way I'm saying it, Percy who? We still have Wright, his deep ball threat. Rudolph, great option for the tight end. We add Greg Jennings. You can call him washed up, you can call him old, whatever you want. Greg Jennings is going to put the team on his back, too. And then you have Cordell Patterson. Patterson, to me, all he has to do is work on his route running, and he's going to be making Minnesota fans say, Percy who?
I think you're right on with that. Cordell Patterson's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to see him. And it was kind of sad when you guys drafted him because I can't really cheer for him. But he's a guy I'm excited to see play in the NFL because get the ball in his hands. It's all you got to do. You just got to get the ball in his hands, and he will make things happen. It's going to be great. I think the Minnesota Vikings have potential to be just as good as they were.
They're going to be a playoff team.
I don't think here's the thing though. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be 10 wins again because
I'm just saying they're going to be a playoff team.
AP, I just don't think it's going to be the same.
You don't think he's
well, you can't do as well as he did last year.
He's not going to have the exact same season, but I think Adrian Peterson, and there's been a lot of news this week around Adrian Peterson because guys have been saying like, oh, well, he had a great season last year. I wonder if he's on HGH. And did you hear his comments that he made?
No, I did not.
Where he came out and said, oh, these guys say that, oh, man, this guy had a great season. He must be on HGH. And he's like, you know what? I take that as a compliment. Thank you. Like, the way he sees it is, and I'm not saying that he hasn't done it. We don't know for sure. I mean, Ryan Braun said that he didn't, and he did. But
Aaron Rodgers, we're still waiting to see that receipt.
I don't think that AP did some performance-enhancing drugs, but I mean, I'm gonna take these comments and be until we see a drug test. Because I mean, I look at what happened to Ryan Braun and I go, you better know you're not doing anything. But I mean, looking at what he said, looking at guys thinking that he does HGH.
Well, I think
that's where we are in this society. Oh, that guy's too good. He's doing something he shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's a big thing of just kind of people being a little jealous, honestly, of AP. It's incredible. We've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. So people are just going to question it because, like I said, we've never seen anything like it. Here's my thing, and I want to address the Christian Ponder thing. I think he gets the full year. Give him the full year to prove himself. If he can't prove himself, you get somebody else next season. I don't think that Matt Castle is going to be a guy who you can view as a franchise
And I never
quarterback.
actually finished my point. I will now. Would I like to see Christian Ponder finish the year? Yes, because, we drafted him so high. Why not? But, I mean, if he struggles, I say you put Matt Castle in because what did Castle prove when he was in New England? You put wide receivers around him. You put guys around him who can catch the ball, and he'll do a good job. You put him in a situation like Kansas City where he's got nothing, and he sucks.
I think for the Minnesota Vikings, you're going to have a little less from AP. Can that be made up by this offense with the quarterback and the wide receivers? The answer should be yes. Because on paper, a lot of things are on paper. They got everything they need to succeed. Will it get done? That's going to be on Christian Ponder.
And I'm going to do a little research right now. I'm going to bring up 2008 was the year that he played all 16 games for the New England Patriots. I want to look at the wide receivers that they had on this roster. And looking at them, they have... Oh, I typed in W-E. I meant to type in W-R. You have Randy Moss, great wide receiver. Jabbar Gaffney, Kelly Washington, Matthew Slater, C.J. Jones, Wes Welker, and Sam Atkins. Randy Moss I would say Moss, Jabbar, and Welker. Those are 3 good wide receivers. Why he was successful: Jennings, Simpson, Patterson, right there.
And we'll have to see what happens. I don't think that Christian Ponder is going to lose this starting job unless he's injured. If he gets injured, sure, Castle can have fun. I think that he's going to be in there all 16 games because I think at the worst, the Minnesota Vikings are still going to be competing for a wild card spot. And they might be at the bottom end of that, but I think they will still be able to compete. And in the preseason, they're 0-2. But that's the preseason. I mean, you get a little bit of a rough start because you got 2 away games, both of them against division rivals. Those are going to be very hard games. You guys can start 0-2. Then you get to go to Cleveland. Or actually, no, Cleveland's coming to you. So that's a little bit safer. But it's not a good start because out of those first 4 games before your Week 5 bye, very early, you get to play Detroit, Chicago, Pittsburgh. There's a good possibility you lose all 3 of those games. You were talking about Detroit possibly going 1-3. Minnesota Vikings might do the very same thing.
You really think so? You think the Vikings are going to tank to start the season?
You got 2 away games to start it off against division rivals. Very difficult.
I mean, but look at what we said about Detroit. Yeah, their defensive line is great, but other than that, it's like, what do they have?
I just don't think that
offense isn't going to be able to go up against our defense, and I feel like Adrian Peterson's going to get enough done to get by that defensive line. The Bears game, I will say, I'm a little worried about because of what I've seen from that defense. I mean, the defense of Chicago scares me. Cleveland, yeah, Cleveland looks good, but show me that in the regular season. And Pittsburgh might be the worst team in the AFC North this year.
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
There's a lot of experts predicting them to come in last place in the division, just saying.
I think that once they get into, and they have the potential to be a bad team, but that offense last year was not figured out. They hadn't gotten it. They're more in tune with this new thing, this new culture that they got going on in Pittsburgh. But it'll be tough. I just think that Detroit game is going to be hard for the Vikings because they have what they need to exploit the defense of Detroit, but they need time.
I will give you, it is on the road, so that's going to make it tougher. But I mean, this is the last thing I want to say about the Matt Castle thing. He had a decent season, like I was saying, when he actually got to start in New England. You know how I listed off all those wide receivers? Guess what 2 players he didn't have on that team? Gronkowski and Hernandez.
Nobody's got Hernandez right now.
Well, no, but Hernandez and Gronk both came to the Patriots in 2010. So, I mean, Castle did a pretty good job with that team with, I would say, Moss and Welker are your 2 great, and I would say Jabbar Gaffney was a good third. If he gets a chance to play, he could see the same thing in Minnesota. Oh, wait, that's right. There's a running back behind him.
And a damn good running back.
Best running back in the league, the number 1 choice in fantasy football leagues across the league, just saying.
If I had to rank these teams, I don't think that the Minnesota Vikings would be in the top 2.
Playoff team, and I will get to that later.
They definitely can compete for the wild card spot.
I will say I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm still saying playoff team. I'll get to that in a little bit.
Well, with that being said, I mean, if they get into the playoffs, it's the number 8 seed. Or number 6.
After we talk about the Packers, I'll get to it.
Yeah. Let's go to the Packers. Unless you got anything else you want to say
I have nothing else to say about the Vikings. I said all I needed to say.
The one thing I will say about the Vikings, I feel bad because you get to go against Washington, Seattle, Green Bay, Chicago.
Bring them on.
Baltimore.
Bring them on, baby.
Tough string towards the end when you're competing for that wild card spot.
You know what I say? Bring them on.
You do get to play Detroit at the end. That'll be fun.
Bring them on.
Talking about the Green Bay Packers now, they're in an interesting situation because obviously they're in the competition for the Super Bowl. They're going to be every single year. Yeah, you lost Greg Jennings, but Greg Jennings has been pretty non-existent on the Packers for a while now. Got Cobb. The man can do whatever he wants, and I would actually compare Patterson to a similar role than Cobb. The running back situation, it's looking like it probably will be better. That still is yet to be proven, though. Of course, Jermichael Finley, Jordy Nelson, and Jones as well. You got everything you need if you're the Packers. Is that offensive line going to hold up? And can the defense stop other high-powered offenses? Usually, the answer is no. And you can't rely on Aaron Rodgers to outthrow everybody.
See, and I mean, one of the things that, yet again, I don't really know why many people were, and when I say many people, I was thinking ESPN, giving all these, injuries are plaguing the Green Bay offense. Well, there's one thing I will say about the Green Bay offense that is, I'm going to compare it to the New Orleans Saints. You could put any wide receivers in front of Aaron Rodgers, he'll get the job done. That's just who he is.
The issue with that at the same time is, though, that this offensive line is just falling apart in front of him. And your wide receivers don't matter that much if Aaron Rodgers is going to spend most of his time under Ndamukong Suh's foot.
Yeah, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers will get it done.
He probably will, and I see no reason why the Green Bay Packers shouldn't be in the playoffs again. Although I will say, to be honest, they might have a little bit of a tough time just because of the fact that there might be a 3-team race in the NFC North.
There is going to be a 3-team race.
I honestly say the Green Bay Packers, there's a good chance they have some trouble in this one. They're not going to be as good as we've seen them be. And part of that is just the fact that they do have a hard schedule.
Well, I mean, it's not... I will say, their first 3 games, you go up against San Francisco, who I'm going to make an interesting prediction about them a little bit later in the show. You play them on the road. Then you play Washington. Then you play Cincinnati on the road. And many people are saying Cincinnati is going to win the AFC North. And then you have an early bye. And then who do you have after that? The best defensive line in the league.
And you have a terrible offensive line right now that's having some trouble. Kind of got to get things refigured out. I just think, I mean, obviously...
You also have Atlanta, the Giants,
You have
Ravens.
a tough schedule. You got to go against all these teams that are going to compete and be difficult for you. And then you end it all at Chicago, which...
Again.
Possibly could be deciding the division. If not deciding division, possibly deciding... For the Green Bay Packers, you got to beat Chicago if you want to be ahead of the Vikings. You might have a situation like that.
Yeah, but I will say the last time the Packers needed to beat the Bears to get into the playoffs, they did what?
They went on and won a Super Bowl, but we don't want to see that happen again. That's all I got to say about that.
I wish you guys could just look at the face Mark gave like, oh, I can't believe he brought that up.
It's... Well, the whole thing was a joke. We shouldn't have even bothered starting any of those starters to begin with. Lovie Smith.
Lovey being Lovey, baby. Lovey being Lovey.
We're going to start all our starters. Oh, we're not having a good game. Pull them out. Pull all of them out. It just was that, honestly, that right there was all the confidence that the Green Bay Packers needed in the world to go and win a Super Bowl. We just destroyed this team so badly that they took all their starters out of the game.
Lovey being Lovey. But, I mean, getting back to the Packers, I think because of the season they had last year, it's kind of hard not to say, okay, you're it. You're the best. Prove me wrong. And, I mean, right now I don't have them being the best team in the NFC conference, but I do have them winning the division. I do, because, I mean... When it comes down to the Packers, the division is going to come down to the divisional games. If they can win most of those games, because look at it this way, I think they'll beat Detroit twice, and then even if they go 1-1 against the Bears and the Vikings, that's 4 wins. They're going to beat Cleveland. They're going to beat Philly. They're going to beat Dallas. That's 7 wins right there. That means you need to find out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the other, 7 games-ish? The other 9 games. You have to win 3.
The one thing I want to say right now, though, When I was looking at the Philadelphia game and Chip Kelly, and I got no problem saying that
It's their defense.
I could have been wrong. I think
about their offense? You were wrong about their offense?
I could very well be wrong about this offense.
Buddy. Yeah,
when I
buddy.
sit there and stare at that 4 tight end set, I think I don't know who's going to stop this thing, and we're lucky that defense is miserable right now.
Yeah, who looks silly for drinking the Chip Kelly Kool-Aid now?
But we're going to see. We still got to wait and see. But when we get to week 10 here, I will say against the Packers defense is not going to line up against.
It's not that good.
It's not going to line up against Chip Kelly's team. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, and I don't know if that offense really is going to be as productive and if they can stop Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers has to get everything done all by himself this season. It's all on him. Yeah, the running backs are a little bit better. Yeah, you got all these wide receivers that are big names because of Aaron Rodgers. But it's all him. Can that offensive line keep him on his feet, keep him healthy? I don't know. The Green Bay Packers, I think they're going to win this division. I'll go ahead and say that. Because basically, the Chicago Bears offense still has a lot of things that need to be figured out. Otherwise, I think we would take it away because we're a more complete team than they would be if we had this offensive system figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And the Minnesota Vikings, they're competing as well. I don't know. It's a little upsetting as a Chicago Bears fan because if only we had the offense figured out right now and we hadn't burned through all these offensive coordinators for so damn long, we could be competing for that spot, but it's just got to go to the Packers.
See, I feel with the Packers, like I said, you got to give them their respect. I'm going to pick them to win the division just out of respect because of what they have done in the past. But to me, it's going to come down to what they do in the division, what they do mostly against the Bears and the Vikings. Because like you said, they're all going to be contenders this season. I'm gonna blend it right over to, I've been teasing you guys throughout the entire show saying, you know what? I'll get to that. What was I getting to? Earlier this month, I came out with my NFC predictions as a just beginning of August. I will have my final version right before the NFL season, but this is what I was thinking at the beginning of August. NFC. Atlanta, Seattle, 1-2. Green Bay and New York, they win their divisions. They get home field advantage. Bears, Vikings, 5-6 wild cards.
I don't really doubt the 3 teams from the North because it's very possible. I think leaving out Washington is interesting. I understand why you do it because RG3 probably isn't going to play at the very beginning.
And plus, the one thing I will say about the NFC this year is we will probably see what we saw, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago, where San Francisco, Washington, they might have 10 wins but still miss the playoffs.
The thing is, and I'm glad you mentioned San Francisco because I don't think they miss the playoffs. I don't think they will because I just think this is such a complete team. I can't see them missing the playoffs. They're just so good. They added so much as just icing on top of the cake, you know? It's so good. And when you have the competition between the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, both those teams look great. So which one of those teams is going to win the division? And then you have the NFC North. Which one of these teams is going to win the division? Probably the Green Bay Packers. So the Bears, the Vikings, San Francisco 49ers, or Seattle Seahawks, depending on who wins that one. I think it'll be Seattle Seahawks who lose.
They win. You think
I
they'll
think
lose?
49ers win the division.
See, I'm in the NFC West. I mean, we did our preview of the NFC West. I'm higher on the Seahawks. And I think that this is what I was going through. Atlanta, they're same old Atlanta, except they add Steven Jackson. The one thing that I like about Steven Jackson that I want to see this year from him is he's basically been on a non-contender in St. Louis. Now you're on a contender. What can you do? Seattle, They add Percy Harvin. They have Sidney Rice. Russell Wilson. He's not going to have no sophomore slump. Show me what you can do. Green Bay, giving them the division because, like I said, right now it's basically out of respect. You know what? You are the best team in the North. Go ahead and take it. We talked about the NFC East. It's the Giants to lose, and like I put in my tweet, Dallas is going to crumble.
I will say the one thing about Dallas is that run games looked good.
Yeah, the run
and
game
that's surprising.
looked good. But I mean, when you go up against a Dolphins team that looked terrible at the Hall of Fame game, I mean, it was nothing special. I think Dallas this season, though, is just going to crumble. And then I have Chicago and Minnesota as 5 and 6 because, like I said, the North is going to have 3 playoff teams this year.
The one thing that I think kind of might change some things up, I mean, the Saints, a lot of people are high on the Saints getting back into the playoffs. I think they're a year out from being back.
I would agree.
Into
I was going to say a year out.
Yeah, and then I think the issue is with 3 teams from the North, it's just going to be those divisional games. Because if Chicago or the Vikings sweep their series against one of the teams, besides the Lions, let's say one of these teams can sweep the Packers or can sweep the other, they're in the playoffs, the other team's not. And then therefore Seattle gets in. You know, I think that's the one thing that can happen. Because it's going to be so tight with that. And the whole NFC West, it's still a tough division because of the top 2. But the Cardinals and the Rams, 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks might have a better chance of beating those teams and then having better division records, thus kind of pushing up their overall record a little bit, might get them in.
And the one thing about San Francisco that I think is going to hurt them, and this wasn't my only reason for saying they won't make the playoffs. My main reason is because I honestly think 3 teams from the North, that is what we are going to see this year. But they're without Michael Crabtree. They're thinking about maybe cutting a guy who they drafted in the first round, A.J. Jenkins, 2 years ago, who hasn't been first-round talent. So, I mean, there's questions around that offense.
My answer to those questions is LaMichael James.
Could be a down year, though.
I don't know. I mean, it's possible. And I also, adding to that, I think without Crabtree, it forces Kaepernick to find other weapons.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, that offense,
it's got everything you need.
I see it as a gimmick offense, though, because, I mean...
How is Seattle any different, though?
It reminds me of, and you can put Seattle in here too, but there's a difference that I'll get to. I see it as when the Wildcat came to the league. Oh, the Wildcat was great. People figured it out. The Ravens figured out Colin Kaepernick and stopped him on that final drive to win a Super Bowl.
With multiple uncalled penalties.
No.
Multiple uncalled penalties.
Why are you passing the ball when you have a guy like Frank Gore? Why?
Because it would have been a catch if it wasn't for pass interference.
Why? Why are you passing the ball? You should have been running the ball.
There was pass interference in the end zone.
We're getting into a different conversation. My point being, they were stopped. They needed a power outage to get back into that game, and I feel like other teams are going to study that tape. They've had the whole offseason to study it. And Seattle, you can put them in there too, but the only difference, Russell Wilson. He's a different kind of player than Colin Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick had better stats last year.
I'm not talking stats. I'm talking those pocket collapses. Russell Wilson scrambles 20 yards in the backfield. Boom, throws a pass, completes it, positive yards.
Touchception. Throws the pass and touchception is what happens. I don't know. I think, honestly, and here's my bias against Russell Wilson. Don't get me wrong. I really like Russell Wilson. I think he's a good quarterback. My bias against him is that some of those plays, especially early on in the Seattle Seahawks season, looked very fluky. They looked like it was a lot of luck. And honestly, you can't do the what-if game, but if the Seattle Seahawks had lost that game to the Packers, they're not in the playoffs. And how did they win that? A fluke. Thanks to the referees. I just think that's my bias against them.
Thanks to the replacement
Yeah,
referees.
to the replacement referees. That's my bias against Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of it just didn't look real. A lot of it looked fluky.
We'll see.
So, yeah, exactly. Until I see it this year, I don't discount it, but I don't really believe it.
But let's do this. Let's move over to the AFC. These are the predictions for the AFC that I put out on my Twitter, at Ricky Widmer, August 6th. And I did this way early in the morning. I have Denver, and I put this in there for number 2. It's a dice roll here. Indy. I think Indy will make the playoffs. I'm rolling the dice really hard, having them second best. They get a bye. New England will win their division. I still have Baltimore winning their division. And the wild cards, Houston, and another dice roll for Miami.
You know, here's the thing, Ricky. The Indianapolis Colts, number 2. I get that it's a dice roll. I get you're going big. It's early prediction, so why the hell not? But Andrew Luck is going to be lucky to survive this season. That offensive line is bad. And here's another thing about that poor defense. Andrew Luck, he can score big, but the team still had allowed more points than they scored. They can't do that and get to the playoffs.
As long as you get the W, though.
But the thing is, I mean, that's the fluky type of situation. The cards aren't going to fall the same way.
Because the way I see that is, let's look at it this way. Let's say you win 10 games, lose 6. All of your losses are 50-0, and all of your wins are 3-0. You're going to be scoring less points than you're scored against, but you're still winning 10 games.
You're not likely to do that two seasons in a row, though.
This is a total, and that example I just used is absurd, but it gets the point across, where it's like, just because there could be games where you just get beat bad.
And that's all last season.
And there
Colts.
could be games like the game against Minnesota where you won late and you broke my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't see it happening again. Andrew Luck, I don't think Andrew Luck really has a sophomore slump, but statistically, we might see what would appear to be a sophomore slump just because of the fact that the schedule is harder. Teams kind of had tape to watch. They can figure you out and figure out this team. And plus, to be honest, it's just going to be, I don't know. People were surprised by Andrew Luck. Not really surprised, but he just came out of nowhere. Oh, this kid's another amazing rookie quarterback. It's all gone this time. Now you're just yet another quarterback.
He's still Andrew Luck. And I mean, even more of a dice roll, after I put these predictions out, you know how I put like my little comments on the conference? All I put for the AFC, Luck versus Manning in AFC title game.
And no, I don't see that at all because I don't even see the Colts getting in there. Houston wins that division. Cincinnati wins the division in the North. The Ravens, maybe. I don't know. They might miss out. The Denver Broncos, obviously.
I think Denver is the onside kick. Well, between me and you, unanimous decision, Super Bowl. Super Bowl winner or just Super Bowl contestant?
I see a repeat of John Elway.
Okay.
Is what I see, personally. But
so you're saying Peyton Manning the next John Elway for this season?
Peyton Manning, yep. Win it. Go off, ride off into the sunset. Here's my question, and I ask it because we're in the AFC.
Okay.
Worst team in the NFL? I say the Raiders.
The Raiders? We're really going to talk about who's the worst team in the NFL?
Yeah. Give me a team. Who's the worst team in the NFL? I go the Raiders because they're miserable, and Matt Flynn will not survive the season.
You are catching me off guard. I'm going to say Jacksonville.
Also a very good choice.
In the NFL, I mean, there are some teams that, and I want to say this, there are some teams mainly in the AFC that I think will have good years but not make the playoffs. Buffalo. They'll have a better year but not make the playoffs. The Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to have a significantly better season but not make the playoffs. Cleveland. Better season but won't make the playoffs. I mean, looking at the NFC, Carolina's going to do better, I think. Philadelphia's going to do better, but all these teams not going to make the playoffs.
I think it's interesting because the AFC, when you look at their playoffs, it's not as much of a competition just predicting things now. You don't have as many hard decisions, especially once you get to the wild card spot. Basically, you're saying, well, the Baltimore Ravens, yeah, they might be back. They might fall off, though. The Indianapolis Colts, they were in the playoffs last year. Can they get it done? Maybe they might be able to do it again. Like it's just not that many questions.
The NFC is the harder conference
Yeah.
by far, and the NFC is, I will say, you could make, except for maybe the Rams and the Lions. Besides those two teams, you could pick any of the other teams to be in the playoffs, and I'll be like, okay, I don't agree, but I understand why you did that.
Well, I want to throw the Cardinals in there as well.
Hey, if the Cardinals play as good as they did, they got a new quarterback. They got Carson Palmer now.
I wouldn't call him new. He's been around the league for a long time.
They've got Rashard Mendenhall in their backfield. The Honey Badger on defense.
That defense is scary. It's just that offense, still horrible offensive line. No
like I
running
said,
back. What
I
can
don't
you do?
agree with, like, if you put Arizona in the playoffs, I don't agree with you, but I can see where you're coming from.
And I just want to say, when we were talking about the AFC East, and you mentioned the Bills, you think they'll be good. They've been impressing me so far. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be as good of a team.
I said they'll be better.
They've been impressing me so far in the preseason. I think that E.J. Manuel has been doing a great job. He's going to win the starting job week 1. Week 1, he's starting. No questions asked. Because...
Well, that's like in New York. I think Geno Smith, he should be the starter.
He won't be.
He should be. That's why I say should be.
He won't be. It's going to be Mark Sanchez because...
The Sanchez.
It's just the whole thing when your head coach comes out and says that you had a brutal practice, you don't start week 1. You might not start at all this season. And that's saying something in New York.
Well, this is not a quarterback battle, but I heard this week, and it kind of shocked me. Did you hear about the latest news about J.J. Swat?
Oh, how he wants
to play tight end?
Yeah.
He wants to play both sides of the ball.
Supposedly, he said he's been trying to do that since he came into the league. And I don't necessarily doubt it. I think it would be scary to see a package for the Houston team, maybe a goal line or a 5-yard type package. No running back at all. Arian Foster, one of the greatest running backs in the NFL right now, he's not going to be out there. You got J.J. Swat out there. You got stack it up with some tight ends, maybe some big athletic guys as well.
You know what you're reminding me of? The fridge.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I don't make that comparison lightly as a Chicago Bears fan, but
I'm not comparing him to the fridge. I'm just saying, you're talking about having a defensive player play offense. I think Refrigerator Perry just plowing it into the end zone.
The one thing I want to say about that is I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that J.J. Swat... It's hard not to say Swat, by the way. I tried to say J.J. Watt, and it was really difficult to do.
J.J. Swat!
But I don't see it happening. Pipe dream for him. Maybe, if they get to the Super Bowl, sure, we'll probably see it.
Oh, yeah.
Because
when the game's on the line.
Because then you have the weird play that nobody expects, and the team goes, we didn't prepare for this.
You know what?
Freak out.
You know what I'd be thinking, though, if he wants to play tight end?
I don't think he wants to play tight end as much as he wants to play H-back.
If I'm Owen Daniels, I'm sitting there going, what about me?
Yeah, you say, you sit your ass back down.
Play defense. Yeah. I've got it covered.
Yeah, I think that's why I think he wants more of an H-back type position. He just doesn't care. He'll take whatever he wants. The question is, we know you can intercept the ball, but you can swat the ball more likely. Can you actually catch the ball on a consistent basis? I don't know.
Yeah, they showed a clip of him practicing with the old pitching machine, I'm going to call it, and he wasn't catching a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a reason you're playing defense.
There's a reason why your nickname is JJ Swat.
Yeah, imagine being a wide receiver or tight end.
Your nickname's JJ Swat.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, well, that's Devin Hester's nickname, right?
No, I think
he can't catch the ball with
Devin
a crap.
Hester's nickname is East to West. Because he's never going to get you any forward progress. He's just going to keep moving back and forth until people fall on the ground.
East to West. But, that's going to do it for the onside kick. I want to check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/onside kick, Twitter @onside_kick_real, my Twitter handle @Ricky Widmer. Mark, what's your Twitter handle?
It is @the Mark Weber. That is 2 E's before Mark Weber.
The Mark Weber. I want to thank everybody for listening. Check out our other videos and other great stuff. We have a great lineup planned for football season. I can't wait to bring it to you guys every single week. That's going to do it for the Onside Kick. And as always, have a good day, everybody.